you ever had that moment where something feels wrong and you instantly know it, but you have no proof? Like, nothing obvious happened. No one said anything strange, no one reacted, but something shifted, and you felt it. A tone that changed, a look that didn't match the words, a silence that lasted just a little too long, and for a second, you freeze, because you realize you might be the only one who noticed. So you look around, waiting for anyone else to react. And when nobody does, you do what you've trained yourself to do. You shut it down. Maybe it's nothing. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Maybe it's just me. But what if it's not? What if the problem isn't that you're imagining things, but that you're noticing things most people are wired to ignore? Think about this. Right now, your brain is filtering out thousands of details. Sounds, movements, micro-expressions, emotional signals. If it didn't, you'd be overwhelmed in seconds. So, for most people, the brain acts like a gatekeeper. It blocks out anything that doesn't seem immediately important. Efficient, fast, clean. But not everyone's brain filters the same way. Some people let more in. More detail, more nuance, more contradiction. And at first, that doesn't feel like intelligence. It feels like confusion. Because growing up, no one explains this to you. You just have moments like this. You're in a group, someone says something, everyone laughs, but you feel tension. You can't explain it, but it's there. Later, something happens. An argument, a fallout, something breaks, and suddenly, what you felt earlier makes sense. But by then, it's too late. Or this. You meet someone new. On paper, everything's perfect. They say the right things, act the right way. Everyone likes them. But something in you doesn't fully relax. There's a mismatch you can't name, so you ignore it. Because you don't want to be that person. And weeks later, you realize you were right. That pattern, it does something to you over time. Because being right quietly doesn't build confidence. It builds doubt. You start thinking, if I can't explain it, maybe it's not real. So you hesitate. You hold things back. You second-guess instincts that were actually accurate. Not because they were wrong, but because nobody confirmed them. There's actually a psychological reason for this. Some people have what's called lower latent inhibition, which basically means your brain doesn't filter out irrelevant information as aggressively. More gets through, more signals, more patterns, more emotional data. Now, on its own, that would be overwhelming, but there is something else that often comes with it. A tendency to process things deeply, to sit with information longer, to connect dots other people move past. So, while someone else is just hearing words, you're reading tone, timing, body language, inconsistencies, all at once. You're not just listening to the conversation, you're reading the space between the words. And here's where it gets complicated, because this doesn't feel like a strength at first. It feels like being out of sync. Like you're reacting to things nobody else is reacting to. Like you're slightly off. So you adapt. You start trusting the group more than yourself. You override your instincts. You tell yourself to be less intense, to stop overthinking. But what you call overthinking is often just unprocessed perception. Information your brain picked up, but you were never taught how to handle. And there's a cost to that. Because your brain isn't just noticing more, it's processing more. Constantly. That's why certain situations drain you so fast. A simple conversation for someone else is a full analysis for you. You're tracking how someone said something, what they didn't say, how another person reacted, what changed in the room, What feels slightly off? All of it at the same time. So yeah, you leave interactions feeling exhausted, and you don't always know why. Socially, this creates something subtle. People feel something around you. They can't always explain it, but when someone feels seen, like really seen, it can make them uncomfortable. So things shift. Conversations change when you enter. Your insights get dismissed as coincidence, or worse, you start feeling like you saw something you weren't supposed to see. And without realizing it, you start hiding parts of yourself. Not fully, just enough. Enough to stay accepted, enough to not stand out too much. But here's the truth. Nothing about this is accidental. There's a reason traits like this exist. In nature, not every member of a group is meant to act the same way. Some move fast, some take risks, and some pause, observe, pick up on what others miss, spot patterns before they become problems. That role, it matters, but only if you know how to use it. Because if you don't, that awareness turns inward. It becomes overthinking, doubt, mental loops that don't stop. You see something clearly and then immediately question if it's valid. Not because it isn't, but because you were trained not to trust it. And that's the real issue. Not your perception, your relationship to it. Because the same ability that makes you feel overwhelmed is one that can give you insane clarity. The difference? Structure. When you learn to separate what you feel from what you assume, recognize patterns without spiraling, trust signals without needing instant proof, something shifts. You stop freezing. You stop second-guessing everything. You start moving with a kind of quiet certainty. Not because you suddenly know everything, but because you finally trust what you've been seeing all along. So if you've spent years feeling like you notice too much, you feel too deeply, you understand things you can't explain, and then doubt yourself for it, you weren't imagining it. You were picking up something real. You just weren't shown how to work with it. And once you do, it stops being a burden and starts becoming an advantage. If this felt a little too familiar, you're probably not alone in it. Feel free to leave a comment. I'm curious how many of you recognize yourselves in this. And if you want more content like this, you can stick around.